One thing I noticed with a lot of new technicians is that even though they have the ins and outs of how to repair devices down pat, they don't really understand how to do an estimate on the laptop. And I find this kind of weird because if you know how to fix something, then you should know how to figure out what's wrong with it. And what I'm realizing is that a lot of the procedure of how to do a diagnosis is actually social and not technical. So I'd like to go over that with this video. The first thing I'd like to go over is the free diagnosis versus the paid diagnosis. I'm in favor of the free diagnosis. I believe that one of the main reasons PayPal is successful is because they remove the most annoying possible barrier to online ordering, which is trying to figure out where your credit card is at 1 or 2 in the morning and then typing these numbers into these little boxes, hoping they're all correct and hitting submit. When you tell somebody, you could get this, but you just have to walk over to the other side of your apartment to do it, you have lost the sale. About 30% of the time, at least according to PayPal. Call me nuts. I don't think that the regular end user in their home knows the difference between the security offered to them by PayPal and the security offered to them by their credit card provider. They don't. What they care about is that they have this one little login and they can just type it in and without having to go into their pocket and reach around for their wallet or walk to the other side of their home to get their wallet. They can simply get the money right out of their wallet, get the money right out by just typing a little password in and buy their shit. Taking away a barrier to getting people to spend money is key in selling somebody. And when you're offering a repair service, you are trying to sell somebody. You are not a utilities provider. You're not a gas station. You are selling a service that they have a choice as to whether or not to use. So you want to do everything in your power to keep them from not spending money. Now, people may say, well, I need to get paid for my work, so I need to get the $50 now. I need to always ensure that I'm being paid for my work. What they don't realize is that the little 50 or 40 or 20 or 70 bullshit dollars that they're asking for up front that they're not getting, or that they're getting 1 or 2 times, is actually keeping them from getting $200 to $500 to $600 time and time again. And I know this from experience. In the month of January alone, $5,600 of net profit were from laptops pulled out of neighboring repair shops and brought here. I started tracking this after last year. At least 10% of our business every month is just from having a free diagnosis, from people who yank stuff from other locations and bring it here because they don't want to pay a fee, or they weren't told about a diagnosis fee up front. So do a free diagnosis because you want the money at the end. You want to sell somebody on a repair service. You want to sell somebody on an upgrade. You don't want to sell them on figuring out what's wrong with it. You want to actually have a chance to get to the point where you get to sell them something before you ask for money. Don't ask for money in the beginning. Ask for money at the end because there's more money at the end. So now that that's done, let's go over how to perform a diagnosis. So let's say you've got your free diagnosis set up. You may say, okay, just leave it for an estimate and I'll get back to you. And you can write them a ticket, you put their machine into a shelf behind you, and you continue finishing up what you're doing now as they walk out of the store. And sometimes people may be a little skittish because you're not looking at the machine immediately and you just put it on the shelf. Putting it on the shelf behind you is the worst possible fucking thing you can do. Because what you've done is you've shown the customer that they're taking a backseat to what it is you're doing. Now, even though this is a totally fine way to run your business because you need to fix what came in first, this is a god-awful thing from the customer's psychology, from their standpoint. Because what you've done is you just put them on the back burner. And people don't like being put on the back burner, ever. So even if they left with a big smile on their face, you're going to get a phone call about an hour later asking if they happen to figure out the problem. Because what they really want to ask you, but what they're unable to ask you because they feel a little embarrassed is, are you looking at my computer? Are you going to fix my computer? Are you going to look at it today? Are you going to look at it tomorrow? Are you just trying to keep my computer for 45 days so that you can throw it away or sell it and say that I never wanted it? Do you plan on fixing my computer? Do you even know how to fix my computer? All of these miserable questions are growing in their brain. In the service industry, the customers have gremlins that grow in their brain that you need to kill in order to keep their confidence and their trust. You need to slay these gremlins. So one of the best ways to slay the gremlin is to look at the computer as soon as it comes in. I'm not asking you to diagnose the computer as soon as it comes in, and I'm honestly not even asking you to put a lot of work in. I'm just asking you to look at the computer when it comes in, give it an honest, what I call pre-diagnosis. A pre-diagnosis is when you get an idea of what's wrong with it, and then you give the customer their options. The pre-diagnosis serves two purposes. The first is that it kills that little gremlin and gives them confidence that you're actually going to work on this machine and that they're not on a back burner. Even if they are. Even if you have 150 machines ahead of them and you're not going to get to this till Saturday. Make them feel like they're not on the back burner. It really does matter. And figure out what they're willing to spend. And don't do this through some stupid little form. While auditioning new repair software, I came across this ridiculous bullshit. Every time I see this dialog box, I laugh and I move on to the next software. Because I could tell that that software is not made by people that know what the fuck they're doing. They are people that are in this field. It's a little field that says, what is the customer willing to spend? Do you go to a bar and ask a woman if she'll sleep with you if you spend 2 hours talking to her versus 4? Or if she'll sleep with you if you both like Nirvana? Or does that work in real life? Can you simply ask up front for something like that and just get it? Or you just get an honest answer on something that on a social situation? Because this is what this is, a social situation. You need to earn the customer's trust and then provide them with an answer. So if you tell somebody, what are you willing to spend, and they tell you $300, and you charge them $295, they're going to wonder the entire way home, you know, was that a $75 repair, or was that a $75 repair that I got charged $295 for, or was that actually a $295 repair? You need to develop customer trust, and you don't gain customer trust by using socially awkward techniques. And a socially awkward technique is asking what they're willing to spend up front. You need to figure this out on your own. So you're going to figure this out by using the pre-diagnosis. Now, with the pre-diagnosis, let's use an example of a liquid damaged computer, because this is a common one that trips up junior technicians. Let's say it's not turning on, and when you plug the charger in, it goes into a reboot loop. Or the charger itself, not the computer, goes into a reboot loop where you see the little light flashing. Open it up and take a look at the damage. Now this does a couple of things. The first is that it shows the customer that you're working on the computer. It shows them that you're just not throwing it away and that you may be looking at it later. It shows them that they're a priority to you. Even if they're not, you need them to think that they're a priority, so that you can be left alone to do the work that you need to do. And so that they trust you when you give them their final diagnosis. So look at the machine and look at the problem, and then also have them observe the problem. Them observing the problem is the second part. They need to see that there is a real problem. A really big issue that repair shops will have is that customers will come in thinking that you can simply wave a magic wand or just tighten a little screw and that everything will work again. So something that works here is actually showing them just how fucked up their machine is, so that they have an appreciation for just how fucked up it is. Because once they appreciate how fucked up their situation is, they will have a higher appreciation for the person who can fix it, and therefore be more inclined to accept the idea that they have to pay more than $20 for this service. So if they look at if I show them this board and it's full of green decaying shit, and they see the board full of green decaying shit, when I tell them this may be $250, they now have an appreciation for the fact that that's a fair price, versus if they don't see it, because then they may just be wondering if I'm just tightening a screw somewhere and charging them $250 because I'm a mean person. So I'll run through their options. I'll say, if this is not turning on because of this DC board, which is the easiest repair, it would be $75. If it's not turning on because the keyboard has logged with water, or the motherboard is logged with water, and it just needs to be ultrasonically cleaned with a keyboard replaced, that's $170. That's the next step of what could be wrong, and also the next step in difficulty, and the next step in price. That's $170. Let's say I tell them that now if any of these little chips need to be replaced, or if the motherboard requires some sort of advanced repair, that would be $250 to $300. And that's the next level. That's even more difficult. And then we'll go for the most expensive, which would be motherboard replacement, which could be $450 to $550. Now, what I'm doing is I'm explaining these options to them. I don't know which option it is. I just know that it's going to be one of these options. So in the pre-diagnosis, you explain every option that it could be, and the price. And you look at the reaction that you're getting from the customer as you're talking to them. And you try to gauge these reactions. See, I'm not doing a free diagnosis because I'm the Mother Teresa of electronics repair. I'm not doing this because I want every single person in New York to know exactly what's wrong with their computer. I'm doing it because I want to make money. And I'm doing it because I want to remove that barrier, as I stated in the beginning of this video, that is between me and the money at the end. So what I want to do is figure out what they're willing to spend. I want to know how much they're willing to spend so that I don't waste time diagnosing issues that they're not willing to pay money for. If their problem sits on this end of the budget, but their budget sits over here, then I can't help them. If let's say they have a $250 or $400 problem, but from facial expressions and from what they're telling me, they're not really willing to spend more than this, then I have two options. I could either sell them on this, on one of the higher level repairs, or I can move on to working on another machine. There is no point in diagnosing these issues up here because they're only willing to spend on these issues down here. If the problem with the computer winds up being an advanced motherboard repair or a logic board replacement, I don't really care. If they're only willing to spend up to $75, whether the motherboard is logged with liquid, whether it needs repair, or whether it needs replacement, which one of these three options it is, I don't care. Because they're only interested in paying this much. So if the problem is here, here, or here, I don't really care for the distinction. I will only diagnose whether or not the DCN board is dead, and then I'll give up. And I'll call them and go, it's not this, it's probably one of these, which would be these costs. And then I can revisit. They may change their mind, or they may not change their mind, and they may say, I don't want to go ahead with it. In that case, all I've done is waste 30 seconds of my time on this free diagnosis by changing the DCN board. I have not wasted 1 hour ultrasonically cleaning the machine. I have not wasted 2 hours replacing the ISL 6258 power chip and 3 resistors by it that have almost fell off the board. I have not wasted time looking for a replacement motherboard. I have only wasted the time of diagnosing the DCN board. I only want to spend time diagnosing what people are willing to fix, and the pre-diagnosis gives me an idea of what people are willing to fix. Also, once I know how much they're willing to pay for it, I know what the likelihood is that I will be paid for it. If they're only willing to pay for these options, but this is the range of what could be wrong, that computer is going to take a back seat to a machine where this much could be wrong and they're willing to pay this much. You understand? Again, now most people are not willing to pay for a motherboard replacement, but the person who's willing to pay for everything that may be wrong with their computer is going to take a priority over the person that's only willing to pay for a certain amount of what could be wrong with their computer. Because I'm guaranteed to get money from this one, but I'm not quite guaranteed to get money from this one. Now you may be thinking to yourself, you're only out there to make money. You're just telling us how to make as much money as possible. And that's the entire point. There are always compromises to be made in business, and there are always compromises to be made in customer service. And all of these compromises exist because there is a finite amount of money that we receive. If let's say if I want to give equal service to every customer, and there's a ton of people coming in, then some of those repairs are going to be done slower, or some of those diagnoses will be done slower, which means that I won't get the money as quickly, which means that I won't have as much money to pay a staff to handle the diagnosis machines that are coming in. Now, if I have less staff, then I have less people to perform a diagnosis. If I have less staff to perform a diagnosis, the diagnosis gets slower, and then you have more pissed off customers. Whereas if I make more money, now I have more staff to deal with the incoming diagnosis because I can hire more people, which means it can be done quicker, which means that the customers are happier, and all goes well. Making money helps you to run your business better. And if you run your business better, you can make your customers happier. It's all this great loop. So you need to figure out where the compromises are going to be. And for me, I compromise by not diagnosing issues that people are not willing to pay for. And I figure out what they're willing to pay for using social skills beforehand. And I keep people confident that we're working on the machine through actually working on the machine. Novel concept. So let's go over what we've learned here. Figure out what the customer is willing to spend, not by asking them what they're willing to spend, but through social skills and a conversation. Have a dialogue with them. Don't waste time trying to figure out what's wrong with the computer over what somebody may be willing to spend. It doesn't matter what's wrong with the computer precisely. It's not an exact science. I don't care what's wrong with the computer over what somebody is willing to spend, and neither should you. Always make it seem like you are working on their computer. Even if you're not working on their computer, always make it seem like they're your top priority. Make the customer appreciate what is wrong with the computer. Show them in front of them what's wrong with the computer. This will make them more comfortable when they have to come in and pay a bill. Don't charge for a diagnosis. Again, you should not put a barrier in between doing business with you and their wallet. Don't put any barriers in between their wallet and you. And making them make a decision really, really early on to give you money may seem like you're securing money, but it's actually going to scare people away. You want to be able to jump ahead to the part where you offer them a solution and you ask them for money. Don't ask them for money before you have a solution. Because if you ask them for money before you have a solution, you may not get any money from them at all. Hopefully this helps you along in doing your own diagnosis, and hopefully this helps you to realize that repair is a social business. You cannot go into this with your soldering iron and your screwdriver and think that you're going to make money hand over fist. You need to actually deal with customers. You need to deal with people the same way that you would deal with somebody that you're friends with, somebody you want to go out with, somebody that you want to be employed by. It is a social business. It does require that you use social skills in order to succeed, just like many other businesses.